Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casmon, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. If you are enjoying the show and get some great value for your investing needs, let us hear about it. Give us some honest feedback with a rating and review. It helps us, but it also helps other listeners find this show for their own investing journey. Now, listen, we got a great show today. We're going to be talking to Nathan Schiess. When you think you found a great deal, asking the right questions could be the difference in finding a stud or a dud. Listen, we've put together a new guide to help you out. It's called 7 Questions You Must Ask Before Investing in Apartments. Now, in this guide, you're going to learn how to uncover red flags, quickly identify underwriting risk, vet sponsors and team members, and confirm key assumptions. Now, this is a guide that's going to help you be a better investor, whether you're an active investor or you're a passive investor looking to partner with other operators. Asking better questions is the key to identifying great opportunities. So download this free guide. Go to our website, casmoncapital.com/7 questions. That's the number 7 questions. And you can access this free guide today. To make it easy on you, though, we've put a link in our show notes. So you go to the show notes, you can click that link and access the guide right now. This guide's going to help you make better investment choices, asking the right questions to build your portfolio. So be sure to download it today. Now, Nathan Schiess is a personal branding strategist and marketing expert who helps real estate professionals build authority, create visibility, and attract aligned relationships through strategic content. Now, with a background in psychology, personal development, and real estate investing, Nathan blends deep insight with punchy storytelling to position his clients as leaders in their space. Let's welcome to the show, Nathan Schiess.
Hey, John, thanks for having me. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, Nathan, listen, as I guess we're all marketers, but as a former marketing executive myself and real estate investor, I'm always excited to talk to other folks in this space, man, because I think it's one of the best ways to build a business. So I'm excited to chat with you and just hear what you're up to, how you help your clients. I went over your bio at a very high level. Why don't you take 2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps?
Yeah, for sure. So I think for the listeners of the show, the most important thing to know would be that I help syndicators, capital raisers, real estate investors establish personal brands. I think it is one of the most underutilized forms of leverage that investors use. And that's ironic because we're all about leverage, right? And I think that this is one of the areas that I have fallen short in the past, which is what drove me to where I am today. I was an investor first. I had a portfolio of about 40 units, and I wasn't leveraging myself at all. And I had some life events that happened that we can get into that drove me to now doing what I do, which is establishing personal brands for real estate professionals.
Yeah, Nathan, listen, definitely a lot of value. And I think most people on the surface understand that, but there's probably some pretty big objections folks have, right? So the first thing I want to ask you is why a personal brand? Like, why can't I just go out there and reach out to folks in my network, raise capital, and do that? Why do you feel the need to build a personal brand?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Personal branding and the idea of a personal brand, I think that there's some confusion around that because to your point, when you're raising capital, that's exactly what you do. Is you're reaching out to folks in your network and talking to them about what you're doing. I think when we talk about a personal brand, it's really just the systemizing of that communication to potential investors and to folks in your network. I mean, a lot of people have social media. A lot of people publish on social media. But why are you doing it? What are you getting at? And I suppose what a personal brand enables you to do is that when you're reaching out to people, you don't have to explain your whole story every single time to every single person. When you take someone to lunch, I mean, if you're going to get someone to invest $100,000 with you or $1 million with you, right? They're not going to do it because of something. They're not going to it's not going to be an email like, oh, hey, can you give me $1 million? Thanks. That'd be awesome. You're going to interact with this person a bunch. And what would be great is when you show up to lunch, they were able to Google your name, look you up on socials and see, project after project and interview and expert content and tips. And they're like, oh, okay, this is a serious player. If they Google you or they look up your Facebook or your Instagram and it's all funny cat videos, that doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in you as an operator, even though you might be the best operator in the country. They can't tell that. You haven't communicated that to them. So I think that what you're doing is, by not having a personal brand, you're just doing things the hard way. It's not a situation where you're going to change the way you fundraise. Like, you're still doing the same stuff. You're still talking to people. You're still setting up lunches. You're still networking. It's all of that. This is just the catalyst that makes it so much easier and more effective. It's a leverage point.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point, right? When we talk about leverage, especially when it comes to raising capital, like you want to make sure people understand who you are, what you do, and how you can help them. And if you're someone who is new to this space or kind of transitioning, that's probably going to be your biggest challenge. If you don't have 10 deals that you've closed and you've gone full cycle and you've already raised a $50 million or something like that, then it's hard. And that's why the personal brand becomes so important, because you need to show people what you're doing, who you are, what you know, how you're, working in the space now. And that's going to make it a little bit easier because people can recognize, okay, I see you over there posting about real estate. I see you touring properties. I see you underwriting deals. They get a sense of what you're doing in the space, and that's going to also pique their curiosity. So I love that fact about the personal brand. There's a few like really big pushbacks I get from my clients and other folks in this space, right? One is the mindset, particularly people who are not comfortable being in front of a camera, aren't comfortable speaking, not doing what we're doing right here. So that person who's shy, maybe a little bit more introverted, doesn't really want to put themselves out there. How can they still benefit from a personal brand?
Yeah. This is where I start with all of my clients. And the question is, what do you want? What do you really want? You have to get serious about it, because I understand you're shy, or you don't want to put yourself out there. Like, look, what do you want? Do you want to kind of protect yourself and not let anyone know about you? Or do you want to make millions of dollars? You have two choices. Figure out what you want to do and be about it. Like, you don't have this luxury of being um, a, a, an unknown person that is also attracting tons of capital to them. It's not how it works. You have to figure out what you want and just be honest about it, because I think that first conversation is important to say, like, just be honest. I mean, what do you really want? And I think that in the process of that conversation, I think we can uncover those insecurities, those false beliefs, those things that are holding people back, and then to help them realize that, and I think maybe this is a good objection, a rebuttal to the objection, that this isn't about you being loved and respected by your peers. That's social media. That's an illusion. That's not how that works. The way it works is, this is a marketing medium. Zuckerberg didn't make Facebook so that he could let you share cat videos. He did it so he could sell advertising space. This is business. And so when you're putting together your personal brand, you don't take it personally. Your brand, I'm a big believer in this. Your brand's not for you. You're not making your brand for you. It's not a diary. I don't need, if you want a diary, get a diary, man. Like, you're doing it for your ICP. So your ideal client profile. That's who your brand is for. It's not for you. And I think that that's where that shyness comes in, is they're thinking, well, I want to make sure that I'm like expressing my authentic self. It's like, they don't care. They want returns. I mean, are you trying to raise money? Or are you trying to be loved? And I think that's the hard thing, is that we all want to be loved and respected. Facebook and Instagram, they're not the place to do it. That's a place for business. You have your family and your personal relationships for love and respect, and that's a healthy form of it. But yeah, we're doing it for them, not for you.
Man, I love that breakdown. You said, don't take your personal brand personally, right? Just, it's not about you. Don't take it personally. It's really about business. And the latter point about that ICP, right? Who is your target? Who is your ideal avatar that you're trying to reach? That's what it's about. And I like to think of it as, most people are really selfish. And I don't actually mean that in a bad way. What I mean is, they don't care about you. They don't care about your shirt, or that you sound awkward, or any of that kind of stuff. They want to know, how can you help me? And once they understand how you can help them, now they can process the information. And we think so much about ourselves as individuals, but again, people don't care about you like that. They just don't. They care about themselves. They care about how they show up. And that's even the same, thing you were talking about is the hesitation we have is we're thinking about ourselves, but it's not about us. It's about the other person. And when it comes to raising capital, you have to focus on the other person, right? What's their challenge? What do they need? How can you help them? Is passively investing a good idea for them? How can it help them achieve their goals? It's not about you, right? It's about them. And once you understand that, it actually becomes a lot easier to understand not just that you should be able to make content, but what kind of content you should be able to make. Talk to me about just some of your experiences with your clients and getting them kind of over that hurdle of maybe not being comfortable making content to actually making content and having some breakthroughs in their business.
Yeah. I think what you just said, John, is right on the money. It takes the pressure off of you once you figure out it's not about you, it's about them. One of the biggest realizations for my clients who are syndicators or capital raisers, I think it's shocking to some people that, they'll say, well, the fund I have or this investment I have, the return is 33% or it's asset backed 40%. And the truth is, it actually might be, but no one will believe you. No one's going to believe you. On the first glance, they're going to go, yeah, sure. And it's funny because I think people think, well, if I publish about, oh, here's the returns, isn't everyone going to flock to my investment? Absolutely freaking not. No, because they don't know you. And one thing that I've noticed about high value people with money to invest, they don't invest in vehicles, they invest in people. They like to invest in a person that they can trust with their money. So when you're doing a personal brand, it's not just about quoting the numbers. I mean, to the point you're making, it is exactly like, what's in it for me? That's always the question you need to be answering, that your client avatar is trying to answer. What's in it for me? Well, the reason that you do a personal brand is because, yeah, I mean, if you can get them a 40% return, one of the things that you have to convey to them is like, I'm trustworthy. Like I have a dog in this race. Like I have to show up and I have to mitigate your risk. I am, my reputation's on the line. Like I'm about that life, so to speak, right? Because if you just show up with a post, it's cat video, cat video, cat video, I'll get you a 40% return, cat video, cat video, cat video. That won't work. It's got to be what you said, which is like this dynamic profile of like, here I am underwriting some stuff. Here I am at this event. Here I am. You basically need to mirror kind of things that they're familiar with, where they're like, oh, okay. If, as I think of a syndicator or someone who's putting together a big project, he's doing the things I would expect someone like that to be doing. And he's talking about it in a lot of different ways. And yeah, so I think I think that when you're raising capital, I think the personal brand is it's paramount. I think that's the way you build trust before you meet someone and you are able to raise capital.
No, great stuff there, especially with the personal brand and being consistent with the post. Staying on that topic, right? When it comes to social media, I know some folks love it. Some folks just want to do the cat videos, as you said. Some folks hate it, want no parts of it. I'm more of a private person, right? So for that individual who's reluctant to even get on social media, what kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah. So first of all, I hate social media. Not a fan of it. It's what I do for work, but not a fan of it. And I never have been. I alluded to the situation that happened to me that kind of drove me into this space. And so what happened was probably 6 years ago or so, I had roughly 40 units. I was flipping 5 units at a time. I had a construction company, a property management company. I founded the Idaho Real Estate Investors Association. I had a lot going on. And I was just running around, and a lot of high level operators, a lot of high level folks, they're running around. They've got so much going on all the time. They're go, go, go. And so my attitude towards social media was like, I don't have time for that. And also, I'm making a bunch of money. I don't need, like, what is social media really going to do? And what happened was I ended up getting a divorce. And with that divorce, I had to liquidate everything, all the portfolio, all of the businesses, everything. And what I realize now, looking back, is that social media is an insurance policy. As you document everything that you're doing, if something like that happens to you, where you get a divorce or something happens in your business where the material proof of what you've done is gone, you will have a record of everything that you've built and everything that you've learned and that you've done, and it can run in the background as well. Which I guess I'll mention that really quickly. Hiring someone to do your personal brand or hiring someone to do your marketing for you, it's the same as hiring a plumber or an electrician. You could do it. You could go and replace a toilet, but you're not going to. You're going to pay someone else to do it so you don't have to think about it because you're busy. You're doing other stuff, right? But you need that insurance policy. So yeah, so that was kind of my relationship with it. And so I realized that that's what was going on. And so as a recompense for my sins, I started a marketing agency that focuses only on real estate folks, real estate professionals, and their personal brands. And so when I bring someone on and how to kind of overcome this thing of like, well, I don't really like social media, this, that, and the other, I think it gets back to what we were talking about, John, which is it's not for you. And I think what it ends up doing is it actually, it's kind of like business therapy, but in doing a personal brand, because you have to go through a couple of things. The first is, what do you want? And you have to get really clear on it. It can't just be like, I want passive income. All right, Kiyosaki, great. You want passive income. We all want that. That's great. What does it look like though? Like, what is this? What are the numbers on it? Where is it? What's specifically, what do you need? And I really like to stack those things. So you have your, one goal and it should go into another goal, which should go into another goal. And when you are pursuing one thing with your personal brand, it's helping you all the way down, right? That's how I believe that's how wealthy people make their money, is that when they do something, it makes them money on multiple levels, right? So, as a syndicator, if you own the property management company, that's helpful, right? When you do a raise, you're also going to be getting income from the property management company, just depending on how things are structured. But that would be an example. So first you do that, and that is helpful in and of itself. And then the second thing you have to do is identify your ICP. And so, and again, that's ideal client profile. So then once you've decided what it is that you want, then you have to figure out who are the exact people I need to talk to. Because that's, as a fellow marketing professional, John, like, you'd understand this, but people are like, well, I'll take money from anyone. It's like, stop it, grow up. That's not how that works. If you try to market to everyone, you market to nobody. Nobody's going to hear you. You have to figure out who is your ICP, who is the person who is likely to invest in this syndication or in this fund, and then all of your social media posts. So once you've identified your ICP, then what you do is something called for me it's PQR2. So it's problems, questions, roadblocks, desired results. So you've identified your ICP. Let's say it's a 45-year-old man in Cincinnati, Ohio, who's just exited a successful financial planning business and already has 40 units of passive real estate somewhere else. Okay, let's just say that's who it is. So then I'm going to take that person and I'm going to say, okay, what are his problems, questions, roadblocks, desired results? And now all of my content is around that. All of it. It's not about me. It's not about, you can sprinkle a cat video in there. I think that's a good thing to do. But again, I think the pressure that is relieved from being like, this isn't about how clever I am or handsome or successful. It's about how can I help them? So that was a very long-winded answer to that question, John.
Yeah, to your point, right? If you don't love social media, you don't have to be the person doing it, right? There could be somebody else that's helping you with it. But again, the content's not necessarily about you. It's about solving the challenges that your ICP, that ideal customer profile, the challenges that they face. And when you approach it that way, it does remove some of that pressure, because I know a lot of people, there's an authenticity, right? There's the imposter syndrome. There's so many things that come into play, which starts to create this barrier where folks don't want to go out there. And then with real estate in particular, there's so many gurus that kind of create this persona that's larger than life. And I know a lot of folks want to shy away from that and not to get confused with that. And I know that was something I struggled with early on, was I didn't want to come across like one of those guys who, gets on a stage and tells you to pull out your wallet and give you $50,000 and I'll teach you the secrets to life, right? So it's a fine balance of, well, how do we put ourselves out there? How do we educate our ICP? How do we share the knowledge, the experience that we have? But how do we do it in a way where you don't come across scummy or scammy or, too much like a guru. So there's a fine line, and maybe it's a bigger line than I'm giving it credit for. But I know those are some of the things a lot of real estate investors think about, particularly when they're looking to raise money. How do you advise your clients, particularly syndicators? Because I think in the residential world, it's just more direct and it's not as broad. But in the syndication space, I just feel like you can get typecast really quickly, and it's different because you're trying to attract capital from higher net worth individuals, and to get put into a box as this quote unquote guru kind of guy, it could very quickly derail your plans.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, the easy off the cuff answer is don't charge people $10,000 for the secret to life. Like that's an easy thing. I think people do like some guidance, but like an easy way to not be scummy is like just don't ask people for $50,000 for a secret course or something. Like that's easy. I think you lead with value. I think that's the easiest way to go. So I think there's a few things. The way to not get typecast, the way to not get pigeonholed into some weird guru thing is, first of all, you need to have a story-driven USP helps. So a unique selling proposition. So why would someone invest with you? And I think a lot of this does get back to who are you trying to talk to? Because
Yeah.
again, I think that if like let's just say you are a military member. I actually know quite a few people who do this where it's like, hey, I I'm trying to help other military members. That's who I help. You're able to be a lot more effective in helping a smaller group of folks, a niche group of folks, um, than if you're trying to talk to everyone. And I think that also helps you get out of this guru like, if you want to learn how to make $5 billion in 3 seconds, look at my Lamborghini. Here's my course. When you say like, hey, I've served overseas, I've gone through this. These are the things that I've learned, and you pull some of that personal experience in and say, hey, now I help this specific group of people. I think that helps. I think that your messaging can get a lot tighter and your stories can resonate, right? The stuff that's going to resonate with like a suburban mom in Wisconsin are different than the things that are going to resonate with a beach bum in Miami, like your language, your languaging and your messaging are limited by the broadness of your scope of your ICP. So the more narrow you can be, the more dialed in you can get that ICP, the more honed your USP can be, your unique selling proposition. And then your messaging will come off less disingenuous because you've really taken the time to understand where they're coming from. And I mean, especially you're talking about high net worth individuals. Like, I think that's tricky for people. Not a lot of people understand that life because not a lot of people exist in that sphere. And so if you want to speak to them, you really need to try to understand them, like what really are their problems? Their problem isn't their grocery bill. Like that's not what they're thinking about. What are they thinking about? What are their questions? What's on their mind? And when you can get into their head so that when you're talking on a stage or on your social media, people are like seeing it being like, holy cow, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like that, they get me, they understand me. That's the open door that gets you, into their world, and so that you can help them make more money with your project.
Yeah, Nathan, I like what you're saying here because um, there's a component, and words like authenticity get thrown around a lot, but really what you're getting at is solving the problem, right? Actually being able to back up your promise. So if you're going to look to raise capital, then you need to be able to deliver on what you're putting out there. You need to talk about why this deal is a great deal, not just the numbers and all that, but like help them understand how this deal is going to help them. If you're coaching, kind of the same thing, right? It's ultimately, it comes down to being able to back up what you're saying. I think what happens in this space is people flaunt wealth or luxury in lieu of actual content or context and depth to lure people in. Like you mentioned, just showing the fancy cars, the jets, whatever. Hey, I'm going to teach you how to do XYZ. But they really haven't give you a framework. They haven't related to you. They haven't told you how to get from A to B. They're telling you how to get from A to Z, right? It's like, well, I can't get to Z yet. I got to figure this out. And that becomes really challenging for a lot of people because they can't go that far. And for a lot of individuals, if you really understand what they're dealing with and you can help them with that challenge, then they can start to see success in their life, in their business. And it really comes down to understanding them, like you said, really understanding their challenges, the problems that they're facing, what those solutions are. If you face those problems, even better, right? Because you've kind of gone through that journey yourself to overcome it. But that's going to make it more relatable and easier to connect. And even if you and I are selling the same thing, right, or we have the same idea, it's still going to sound very different because my experience is very different than your experience, and we're talking to a different target. So the language that we use, the examples that we use, it's just going to be a different experience, and that's okay. I know when I was starting off, before I launched this podcast, I was at a conference, the first ever, best ever conference, actually. And I was talking to some guys. One guy I knew from his podcast, and this was like 9 years ago. So I'm talking to him at his podcast or at the event. And I was like, yeah, I kind of thought about maybe doing a podcast, but, the world doesn't need another real estate podcast. And this was 9 years ago, remind you. And he's like, the world may not need another real estate podcast, but the people in your network need to hear from you. And that was so profound and simple to me because it alleviated the pressure of what I felt like I was trying to build. Because in my head, it was, well, if you launch a podcast, you need to get to 1 million downloads. And ooh, can you get to 1 million downloads in a real estate podcast? Like there's like five. Like if you can't be top five, what are you even doing it for, right? And
Mhm.
that helped me realize I didn't have to have the greatest podcast in the world. I just really needed to find a way to educate the people close to me. And yes, we want to expand, we want to reach more people, but it made it easier. From a branding standpoint, what is your position as far as reach and growing the audience versus simply having some proof points for anyone who is already looking for you?
Yeah. Great question, John. Yeah, I am a staunch op- opposer to vanity metrics. I don't if you're looking to get likes and follows, I'm not your guy. I it's not what I do. I do bottom line. And so to your point with the podcast, like a podcast is such a wonderful it's a lot of hard work. But it's a wonderful way to connect with people and to demonstrate your expertise and to get funding for your deals. This gets back to what do you want? If you want to be Instagram famous or Facebook famous or whatever, then that's your goal. That's not the same as wanting to raise money for syndications. Not the same. And to your point, you're not looking to, as a syndicator, you're not looking to become Kim Kardashian in order to get $50 million for a fund. And the truth is that if you have a following of, honestly, if I have clients that are somewhere between 5 and 10,000 followers, I mean, anything above that is just gravy. Like the idea is you want to get your message in front of people. And here's the thing, most people don't have $1 million to put into your syndication. Most people don't. So you're not going after most people. And I think the best illustration of why following like a vanity metrics, these vanity KPIs are such a mistake as you get to Google Ads is a good example. So if you're doing a cost per click campaign, if your goal is to get to as many people as possible, you are going to drain your bank account talking to everyone. You don't want people clicking your ads unless they're your ICP, or it will cost you money. And I think that's the best illustration of it. Like if you put a post out and it gets 10 likes and you get a deal from it, that was a win. If you put a post out and you get 500 likes and no deals from it, that's a loss. You didn't achieve your goal. But you have to be crystal clear about that. So as far as reach, like there is something to be said. I mean, that's why we need a personal brand, right? Is that we want to get reach. We want to get a clear signal out about what we're doing, which I think the process of doing the personal brand clarifies that. I think that as we go through the process of posting and seeing what's working, what's not, it helps us understand our ICP better and it makes us better operators. So there's that piece. But then the idea is you want to reach the people who are going to do something with you. And also, I mean, to your point of your network, John, it's like I want to bring people onto the podcast, and then I want to stay connected to them. And I want my listeners, I want to be connected. I want to be messaging them, and I want to build a community, not just not just a facade, not a social media likes, follows facade. I want an actual community.
Yeah. So we're obviously talking to real estate investors, right? And real estate professionals. So if you don't have a huge audience, let's just say you have 1,000 followers, like, can you really monetize that? Like, can you make $100,000 when you only have 1,000 followers?
Yeah, I've done it. Yeah, absolutely. And the way you do it is that, so first of all, who are your 1,000 followers? It gets back to your ICP. You need to make sure that your ICP is your follower base. When you're posting, when you're thinking of social media, stop thinking about your grandma and your ex-girlfriend and this person you met at the gas station. That's not who you're talking to. You're only talking to your ICP. So 1,000 people who are your ICP is plenty. And so in my case, when I founded the Idaho RIA, that's what Real Estate Investors Association. That's like that was who my ICP was, and those were my friends on social media. And I had, I think, 2 or 3 deals. I had probably $3 million worth of deals come through that in the space of maybe 2.5 years. And so you can make it. And again, that's not profit. That was like the value of the deals. But I mean, I made probably about 200 over the course of that 2.5 years. So about $100,000 a year. And I had right around 1,000 followers. So I'm proof of it. It definitely works. But it's not really about the quantity of followers. It's about the quality of followers. And there's a lot of good books on that as well. Like Raving Fans, I think, is about that. I mean, you need about 1,000. Pat Flynn talks about it as well. You need about 1,000 people who spend $100 with you or $1,000 with you will make you a very rich person.
Yeah, it's great stuff, Nathan. Because I think oftentimes we think we've got to hit some magic number, right? 10,000 followers or 25,000 followers, whatever it is. And it's like, oh, it feels like a lot of work, and people are really turned off from trying to do that. But 1,000 followers. I mean, most of us have 1,000 followers on our channels. It may not be the ICP, right? Maybe not the ideal target, but you can, very quickly figure out at least the pathway of getting to, 1,000 followers. And to your point, if you have them who are paying you $100, $50, whatever it is, you can see that there's a pathway to grow, to monetize, and to make this worthwhile. And there are people out there like you and your company that can help us do that. So it's not something you've got to figure out all by yourself. I know
Yeah.
you work with celebrities and TV stars and other folks as well. Can you talk to us about just some of the lessons you've learned from working with some of these influencers and millionaires?
Absolutely. So the big thing with that is they're kind of in a hard spot. When you're famous, the issue is that you have so many people who aren't your ICP who are following you and who are like wanting to be involved in your life. And so the biggest thing that I've learned from working with celebrities, let's say, is that there has to be a channel. How are you going to monetize this following? And it's interesting because people think, well, if I could just get to 100,000 followers, but I've had clients come in who have 100,000 followers and can't make a dime. They haven't made a dime from it. And the issue is that as they're bringing people in, they weren't people who are going to spend money. There's a big difference between followers that are going to spend money and followers who are just there to follow and watch what you're doing, right? And there are ways to monetize it. And once you get into the influencer space, that's a separate thing from real estate. That is monetizing a following, which we're not going to talk about here. But as far as real estate is concerned, one of the biggest issues is like, okay, as I'm having people see my content, it's like having I was reading in I think it was one of Claude Hopkins' books, but it's like having a waterfall, all of this stuff that's coming, and you've got to be able to use that waterfall, the power from that waterfall, to create energy. So either to get a windmill that's creating electricity or to go to work, right? So the biggest thing is establishing a path for it to go to and being very clear about what that is. So if you have 100,000 followers or something like that, okay, when you're posting, do your followers know where to go to spend money with you, right? Do they know, where your syndication page is, or how to get a hold of you to talk about, having a meeting so that they could, give some capital for your project? You have to be crystal clear on how they can work with you, and then you need to be making content to those people, which is hard. I think the truth is you get 100,000 followers or you're a celebrity status, and that messes with you a bit because you're loved for this thing that you've done to this point. But the truth is the only love that you really need is from people who are going to spend money with you. And that's 100, 1,000 people. So you have 100,000 people that all just want to see you, shake your butt in a TikTok dance. But there's 100 people that if you would say something about what you're doing with your syndication or your fund or your real estate, they would pay you $200,000 towards the fund. And so there's a conundrum there of like, do I want to be loved? Do I want money? And it's hard. It's tough.
Nathan, that's a phenomenal point, and I want to dig down a little further. But just to recap, I mean, you're talking about really there's a difference when you're growing your brand, you're an influencer, you've got followers, but you want people who are going to pay you for the thing you do, right? Not just people who are following you to be entertained. And I know that there's this whole process of you want to entertain people and educate them and all this stuff. But your point is ultimately, you want to make sure that you're growing your business and doing business with folks who are willing to pay. So as we go further, and I think that helps people with the content, right? You don't need to be doing these silly TikTok dances or hopping on every audio trend and all this stuff. That's not what we're talking about. Yes, you'll get a lot of likes and views and all of that. Those go back to the vanity metrics. You're not necessarily attracting that ideal customer, that ideal avatar, that ICP who is looking to do business with you. So let's talk about that space and just go a little deep in the weeds for a second. I saw this post from a woman on Instagram, and I can't remember who it was, or I give her credit, but she was talking about her content strategy. And she was saying that we need to stop nurturing our audience as much as we're doing, because the longer we nurture them, the less likely they are to pay, to hire us, to work with us. Talk to me about kind of your philosophy on creating content and then trying to get that ICP through our funnel and ultimately a paying client, an investor, a buying, client, whatever it is. But how do we get them from content down our funnel to the point where we're doing business?
Yeah, great question. So I agree with that post. I think it's a great point, and I've read that in a couple of places actually. I mean, as long as we're talking about shout
And
outs.
maybe elaborate a little bit because obviously you and I understand the market. When we talk about nurturing,
Sure.
talk a little bit more about like what that actually means.
Yeah. So I'm gonna drop a name of a guy that I really like a lot, and that I use for kind of keeping my bearings in the market. But his name's Charles Miller. He's a copywriter. He just does copywriting. That's all it is. And he talked about this recently, and I couldn't agree more. But the idea is we've been sold on this thing of like, well, we want to always lead with value, and we're giving things, and we have a newsletter, and we have this thing, and all of these free things that we're giving. And the idea is that if we just give enough free stuff, one day they're going to turn around and they're going to buy from us. And Charles Miller, his point was like, maybe, but the truth is that you need to be selling in your posts frequently and saying like kind of hard sell stuff. And the reason being, to your point, people who we may think are our ICP are actually not. They're the DIYers. They're the ones who are going to take all of that free content, but they're never going to buy anything from you, right? They're the people who are like going to look at all of your syndication stuff and learn how to do it themselves, and then they're going to go off and they're going to do it, which is fine. I mean, that you're always going to have a group of people who do that, but you got to realize like when we're as far as the nurture thing, it is, again, it's clarity on your ICP. If someone has $200,000, there's Alan Dibb talks about this in his one-page marketing book, and which is a phenomenal book on marketing. But he says 3% are ready to go right now. So of your true ICPs, 3% are like, I have $200,000, or I have $500,000 or $1 million. I need a place to put it. And if you can deliver the value and help me understand why yours is the place to put it and why it's unique and why it's going to solve my problems, I will do it right now today. Like, I'm ready to go. He said there's another, I think it's somewhere between 43 and 47% of buyers aren't ready today, but they'll be ready within a year. So then I want you to, as a capital raiser, put yourself in that mind space of like, okay, let's say you have a deal that's going to close here in, let's say, 60 days or something like that. It's a 1031. You have some money that you're going to need to place somewhere, right? You're not going to place it today, But in 60 days, you're going to start looking, and you're going to start, and maybe 60 days is kind of a short time horizon, but let's say it's 90 or 120 days. And so you go, okay, I do have some money coming up that I need to place. So if the person who's creating the content every day is delivering value that isn't like, oh, join my newsletter, and then I'll just kind of, I can like help you along, and then, oh, here's this other free thing. If instead it's like, hey, here's where we're at, you're creating scarcity, your copy is good, your writing, your messaging is sharp, which that's a skill. I mean, copywriting is hard to do, and in ChatGPT can't do it great. You need to hire someone to help you do it if you don't do it, for sure. Yeah, especially if you're raising money as a syndicator. You better hire a copywriter, or you're being silly. And so you get this messaging clear where for 120 days or 90 days, you're talking about their issues. So the gift you're giving, the nurture that you're giving a true ICP, is you're showing that you've taken the time to give a crap about them and what they're thinking and where they're at. You're making a post of like, hey, maybe you've got a project that's you're going to 1031 and you need a place to put it. Here's why mine's the best option. That is more helpful to them than a newsletter, period. Or a lead magnet, or some nurture, whatever. And a lead magnet, again, for listeners, it's like sometimes we give something for free in order to get them into our CRM so that we can email them and get them on our email list, which email lists are great. But to John, to your point, and to the point that this lady's making, some people get over zealous about that, where it's like, hey, I'm not going to ask for the sell. I'm not going to hard sell. I'm just going to be always giving these little kind of kitschy things away, like, oh, 3 tips for people who are looking to invest in syndications. It's like, I don't know how many people are really reading that, boss,
Or to your point, Nathan, they're reading it, but they're like, cool, thanks for the free 3 tips.
Yep.
They'll just keep waiting on the next free thing you give them, right? So they're not ready to say, hey, why don't you teach me how to syndicate? Or, hey, why don't I give you my money to invest? Like, we're not making that transition and that connection. And for a lot of people, that's what happens. And that's why they get discouraged, right? You've been doing the newsletter, the podcast, the social media content, and all this other stuff. You're like, well, how come my business isn't growing? Well, we're never asking people to partner with us. We're never telling them directly how they can work with us. And I will tell you, like, I spent a lot of time over the last year looking at our own content and saying, hey, you know what? It's not as effective as it used to be. There are a lot of reasons why, but one of them is this thing we're talking about. I've never been a good salesperson, right? And I always tell my kids not to use superlatives like that, so I shouldn't say it myself, right? But sales is something I've always had to work at. But I've always enjoyed marketing. Marketing was more natural to me. And part of it was because with marketing, you're talking to a lot of people at once. With sales, you're really talking to a smaller group of people, if not one-on-one, and you're asking for the business, right? You're putting a strong offer out there, and it's just different than the marketing to me. And some people prefer one versus the other. I prefer marketing over sales. But what I've realized is, even within our content, that wasn't something we were doing often. We were not telling people, go to our website, sign up, join our investor list, get access to our next deal. This is what's going on. Here's what we're doing with our investors, right? Here's the returns that they're seeing. Here's what our coaching is looking like. Here's what our mastermind members are saying. Like, we weren't explicitly telling people what we sell. Now, we would, we throw out little carrots, and we've got our, our lead magnets. We've got our 7 questions you must ask before investing in apartments, which is a phenomenal piece of content, if I must say. But we have a lot of that stuff, but we weren't doing that in a lot of my other clients. So we had to sit back and talk to them about, okay, hey, here's where there's a little bit of a gap, right? And if you go back to it, you've got your funnel. So this is marketing 101 stuff, but you've got your leads, right? So these are the people who are aware that you exist. You've got the people who are leads. They've raised some level of interest to say, hey, I might be interested in that, right? And then you get down to your conversion, right? Who's actually trying you? Who's going to work with you and partner with you one time? And then you got your loyal customers, right? Your loyal clients, your loyal investors. And we've got to understand where that drop off is and where we need to tighten up in our operations. For 99% of our listeners, you just don't have enough awareness, right? Because people don't
Sure.
know
100%.
what you do and why you're doing it.
Yeah.
But for some of the other folks, if you're doing a lot of the stuff, you're posting ads, you're on social media, you're doing those things, you may have a conversion issue. And that gets back into messaging like you've talked about. It may get back into the offer or just being more explicit and letting people know here's what the offer is, and here's how we help people in ways that maybe others are not. And that's something that stands out. And you've got to know your stuff. You have to know what the challenges people are facing, and you have to be ready to answer the tough questions. We could go on and on with this, Nathan. I think this is just rich material here. But folks that do want to learn more about you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, look me up on Facebook or Instagram, or not Instagram, excuse me, LinkedIn, Facebook or LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to have a chat with them. And yeah.
Absolutely. With Nathan, right now, we're going to transition and go to our round of insights. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to grow as a multifamily investor, you have to spend more time with other multifamily investors. And an easy way to do that is to join our apartment investing mastermind group today. Just go to casmoncapital.com and click on the mastermind button. Now, as a part of this group, you'll get access to expert trainings, group coaching calls, industry news and updates, as well as all of our webinars and workshops, including our 3-hour workshop on raising capital. Again, if you want to be around other multifamily investors that can help you scale your portfolio today and grow your network, make sure you're a part of the Apartment Investing Mastermind. Just go to casmoncapital.com and click on the mastermind button today. Nathan, give me a failure or an apparent failure that sets you up for later success.
I think what I mentioned earlier, where I had to sell everything and I had no evidence of what I had done and accomplished in my real estate investing career, and that set me up for the business I have today and the abundance that I experience now as a result of having failed to document what I was building. And so yeah, and now I'm in a much better place.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for our listeners.
I mentioned two in the podcast. So Charles Miller's stuff is phenomenal for copywriting, and then Alan Dibb, his book, The One-Page Marketing Plan, phenomenal book. Great place to start for marketing material.
All right, great books there. And I was actually going to ask about a book. So give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most of the last year.
The book that I probably recommend and gift the most. This is a little bit. This may help some of your male listeners, but there's a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And it's a book that really speaks to a lot of issues that men in this generation are having. And that's the book. And I think that it also does translate indirectly, but does translate into success in your real estate, syndicating, capital raising stuff.
All right. Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
I am a firm believer in exercise of the body to help your mind stay strong. So a daily habit is I exercise every day for my mind, actually. It helps me think clearer and make better decisions.
Give me your number one insight for building a personal brand.
Know what you want. Get clear on what you want. It's very difficult. My favorite quote is from George Orwell, and it's think more exactly. So get clear on what you want and think exactly about it.
All right. You're out in Iowa. What part of Iowa?
So I am in Utah, actually. So I'm in Harriman, Utah. Yeah, Salt Lake area.
All right. So give us your favorite place to grab a bite to eat out there in the Salt Lake area.
Favorite place to grab a bite to eat? I would say R&R, barbecue, baby.
All right, there it is. Well, listen, we had a lot of great stuff, Nathan. Appreciate your time today. A couple things jump out to me. A personal brand is important. And one thing I always tell people is everyone has a personal brand. It's just a matter of how much you're curating that personal brand. But a personal brand is just what others say about you when you're not in the room. So if you want people to know you're a real estate investor or a real estate agent, you got to tell them you're in real estate, right? So what do they say about you when you're not in the room? Build out your personal brand and take ownership of it. Social media is there. If you're not someone who loves social media, you can work with groups like Nathan's team to take that on for you. Otherwise, make sure you're focusing on your ICP. It is not about you. It's about serving your audience. And that alleviates a lot of pressure. So you don't have to worry about how you look or how you come across or is this too whatever. Just create content that serves your audience. And that's going to make it work a lot harder for you. And you really just need 1,000 key followers, right? Find your audience. That's going to make life so much easier for you. And that's a great way of growing your personal brand. Again, if you want to connect with Nathan, we'll put his links in the show notes. Nathan, thanks again for being a great guest and coming on the show. We look forward to staying in touch with you, and I hope you have a great day. Hey, listeners, real quick, Nathan's out there in Salt Lake City. And if you want to get out to Salt Lake, join us for the best ever conference, February 18th through the 20th, 2026. I will be there as well, speaking on something. Don't know yet, but I will be there as a speaker this year or next year, I should say, BC 10. Hope to see you there. See you next week.